Hello, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to be having another episode of Vina Talks Andy Life today with an absolutely amazing person. And this is Bola, with the most gorgeous smile. There we go. Sorry, I had to take it out there already. Um, Bola and I actually met a few months ago, and I think we had also another opportunity to catch up, like properly, speak about life, speak about the industry, speak about aspirations and careers. Just a couple of months ago, and that was through another amazing community, and that's ICANN, this Insurance Cultural Awareness Network. And that's a community that brings together people of different cultural backgrounds, and of course, we're all connected through this amazing sort of differentiating cultural backdrop through an industry like insurance or the financial services in the city, in the square mile. And we just talk and connect. And quite often we actually find ourselves in the spirit of, oh my God, I can't believe the same is valid with, with you and your cultural background, or the stipulations of the families, or what sort of, brings us together, what makes us fall apart, and then meet up after so many months of not having spoken, thinking, oh my God, how do we know it? You know, speak sooner, or why did we sort of, have this row, and let's sit together, let's drink together, or whatever. So I can go on forever about culture, as you know, and heritage, but I'm going to stop here, welcome you, Bola, and actually give you the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Vina, for such a vibrant introduction. I don't think anyone has ever introduced me in that way before, but here's to new things. Well, hello everyone. My name is actually Bola, but I prefer everyone to call me Bola just because I just seem to have grown to like my shorter form of my name because it's very catchy. But that's a random fact. But that being said, I am a recent law graduate. I graduated in July 2023, thankfully.
Well
And
done.
I
Congrats.
somehow, thank you, I somehow managed to grow a passion into, the insurance industry, how it works, because it actually has been the first industry that I've seen that is, evidently a people's business. They're all about relationships and whatnot. So I've been going for tons of events at ICANN, and I remember one particular event that really struck out to me was the Barbie and Insurance event last summer um by Sandra Louis. I hope I got that right. But yeah, it was lovely and I met lovely people. And I did all of that all through the last quarter of the year till the Icon Christmas event where I met a very lovely Vina and we just connected from one conversation, which was so vibrant. Oh my goodness. And yeah, here we are now about to talk about literally culture and neurodiversity and our different but interesting perspective of how life works. So yeah,
Exactly.
I hope that
Oh,
was a
that's
very interesting introduction compared to Venus one.
there's no comparison. Everybody brings their own sort of, zest to it. And, quite often I speak and I'm so conscious of the fact that I speak a lot and very fast. Like, there's so much of me
Yeah.
that wants to sort of, give and contribute. And I'm always sort of, being me, obviously. There's not much else I can do, I guess, but I find myself being very conscious of the fact that I have said that a little bit slower, with less sort of zealousness and a little bit more kind of, I don't know, control. Hey ho, it's one life, and we try to live it to the best of our abilities, I guess. And I seem to not have that many other than just one way. But, um, look,
Yeah.
what I find fascinating is that already you are such a recent graduate. You said law degree, and
Yeah.
that's amazing. 2023, like just a few months away, and the fact that you've been able to connect with such an industry like insurance. Quite often, when you think finance, you go banking or asset management, investment management, or any
Yeah.
of that. Obviously, why insurance? For many, insurance is considered to be quite old-fashioned. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but you seem to sort of appreciate the people element. And that's so true. So true. How do you think a lawyer should feel about this kind of people element of insurance?
It's actually very ironic because I was having a conversation about this a couple months ago, and this conversation centered mainly around, oh, you come from a very strong legal background, considering the fact that both parents are judges. So, with law, I wouldn't say that, it's an introverted career, but it is quite reserved, very conservative. So you would find a lot of introverts in that, industry. But they are extroverts, don't get me wrong, but you wouldn't exactly expect someone like that to fall into the insurance market, especially someone like myself, because before I graduated, I was very, very, very introverted, very much on my own, super serious, just, but I feel like the market has a lot to offer in terms of it being open to literally everybody. And over the past few months, I've met different sorts of people from different backgrounds. I've met people who studied history and they are brokers. I've met people who studied medicine, did the whole medical school thing, and they are underwriters. I've met former investment bankers and funny enough, this will sound very random. I've met someone who was an architect and ended up in insurance. So that's what fascinated me the most. That okay, yeah, if it can open up to anybody, then of course it can open up to someone from a law background. And with tons of research and readings that I've done, I saw that okay, there's a lot of law in insurance, really. And last year I made it a goal of mine to become more open-minded, to become willing to explore and, open up my mind, not, be more social and just, be more of a people's person. And insurance just literally walked through my doors and I was like, okay, yeah, I think I can work this out and see how this is going. And I love it so far, it's amazing, and I'm really looking forward to joining the industry per se, like any of those amazing organizations that would have me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, by the way, a little bit of a shout out to my PI friends, so professional indemnity friends. And that's typically, where you would find ex-architects working in this line of business. But of course, you
Mhm.
can find architects in construction and engineering. Again, I'm speaking very much line of business here. That's the purpose of another, episode. But you're totally on the money when you speak about the different professions, because that's an industry that's so multifaceted, taking into
Mhm.
account the various classes of business and, of course, the specialization, we speak in the life sort of side. And, of course, in health, you would need the people of medical sort of background, lawyers such as yourself, we need across, because, of course, insurance in programs are based very much in wordings and these infamous clauses and what's in and what's
Yeah,
out.
yeah, policies and so on. Yeah.
We need you to push us a little bit and provoke the necessities rather than finding ways as to why we shouldn't be paying out the claims. Really, to get from the beginning of putting together a policy to make sure that it's really doing for the people the justice they expect, which is essentially
Absolutely.
educate, and secondly,
Mhm.
be there to enable business and people to find a feet um, after there's been a natural, catastrophe or any other sort of way that has created a dent into a balance sheet or in a household sort of income. Um, I love that sort of, perhaps if we were to dwell on a little bit of the people sort of industry. And as a person, you say you used to be quite introverted, and you're very much, welcome to remain. People don't change overnight. How do you think also the circulation of neurodivergence sort of enhances that, or possibly creates a little bit of a clash in the way that you expect people to sort of perceive you?
Hmm. That's a very good question, actually. Especially when you say with the clash and all of that, because with neurodivergence, yeah, it's sort of 50-50, if that makes sense. We can be very out there and hyper, super. We have our moments when we're hyper and we're speaking really fast and everything. And then we have our moments where we can either be understimulated or even overstimulated. So whenever I'm overstimulated, for example, I tend to go more quiet than usual, just so that I can hear my own thoughts and like just, process things easier. So, it's like um it depends on when people meet you, really. It's actually about timing. In um line with being perceived, it's about timing, I would say, because you met me, say, during the Icon event and all of that. I was 100%, on the go and all of that. And then someone may have met me perhaps 2 hours before, maybe when I was on the tube and say a central line tube and it was packed and it was this and there was so much going on and this. You might have probably just met a very quiet, overwhelmed Bola, like, oh my gosh, yeah. And then they might perceive me as a shy person, but really I'm not as shy as you may think or so on. But you, people like you who have met me at the Icon events would have thought, oh my God, wow, so vibrant, so this, so that, this and that, because, so it's about balance. It's about balance and timing. And I would say with perceiving someone, it's about taking your time to perceive the person, and that's where, getting to know the person comes in, because you can never entirely be too sure and just form that one line of, opinion that, oh, this person is generally a shy person, because you might see that person tomorrow and think, oh, but I thought you were introverted. I thought you were shy. No, I wasn't introverted or shy. I'm just I was just overstimulated or understimulated. So, you know, the world of neurodiversity and being perceived is, I would say, it's balance. It's a lot of balance, patience, and eye to detail, like key attention to detail. It's for you to be able to, form that concrete opinion of that person and so on. So I would say with the clashing, I wouldn't entirely say there's much of a clashing. There is, but it's not that bad. It's not as persistent as one would expect it to be. Yeah.
Beautiful what you say. I love your point about patience and taking the time to allow ourselves to stay, to formulate perceptions, and perhaps be a little bit more flexible or lenient about categorization of people.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps we should not really use little pots and pockets of this person needs to be categorized there. I do appreciate why we do it, because we want to simplify things. We want to enable ourselves to navigate, personalities, preferences, likes, dislikes. But at the same time, we stand a high likelihood of perhaps getting it wrong. And then that kind of double empathy issue becomes very evident in our sort of relationship. And of course, that to me, because at the end of the day, Vina Talks ND Live, this podcast series, is done exclusively for the benefits of GAIN, the Group for Autism Insurance Investment and Neurodiversity, CIC, that works across the financial services. And given that a bunch of us tend to have been veterans in the insurance space, is very much skewed, I guess unintentionally, but then organically towards insurance. And in insurance, being a people industry, we try to enable this understanding of individual differences,
Mm-hmm.
understanding, what makes us be and act the way we are, and also bring together different intersectionality elements like culture, like educational backgrounds, socioeconomic background, and a raft of other, meanwhile known as, you know, protected characteristics, or my favorite term, social graces, that enable us to really deeply understand and respect and why not like each other? How about like rather than dislike? Our clients expect that, I find. Insurance is a
Yeah.
great industry so long as you appreciate the client you're serving.
Yeah. Yeah, I have noticed that, but at the same time, well, actually, since I wouldn't say, I've known the insurance industry long enough as I've known how the legal industry operates. But what I've noticed, and I'm really glad about, is how fast, or how rapid inclusivity is being promoted. Over the past few months, heck, 6 months, it's been 6 months since, I've known more, a lot about the insurance industry. And every month, there's always some form of new dynamic that's been introduced to involve inclusivity, the events. I mean, there was the Black History Month in October where there were a bunch of events running all through. In August, September, that was the Barbie and Insurance thing where, they had lots of amazing women gather around. It was so beautiful to see because in all honesty, I have been in a square mile couple times, or if not a lot of times. And when I first started this whole journey of starting a career in the insurance industry, networking and so on, I would say in August, when I started coming into the city more, oh my God, there were a lot of men. I was always like a lot of men. So when the whole Barbie and insurance event happened and I saw the pool of women in the room, I was like, okay,
Really?
okay, I'm seeing a bit of inclusivity here. And then from then on, I started noticing, okay, more women, oh my goodness, a lot of women have been doing huge stuff within the industry, within ICANN. And I was like, okay, seeing that. And then Black History Month came along, which was spectacular, by the way. ICANN had a lot of lovely events lined up, and then they had the whole unveiling at Lloyd's as well, which my goodness was absolutely beautiful. I feel like that was very, very symbolic of showing how much or how far the insurance industry has grown and is willing to grow when it has to come with inclusivity and the diversity. Because there's the first woman to be chairman of the Lloyd's Association. There was the first transgender woman. There was a gay person, I think, someone that was representing LGBTQ, and like all sorts of different sorts of people from different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, different cultures. And it was like, okay, there is a will to grow. There's a difference between being inclusive, quote unquote, and having the will to be inclusive. Because a lot of people are, oh yeah, we're inclusive, we're diverse. It's just to fulfill our righteousness to say, yeah, we've done that. But you can see that there's a will to do so. And I've noticed because with as a graduate, you have tons of processes, application processes and so on. And you have that whole section that says, oh, are you neurodivergent? Would you like reasonable adjustments and so on? In as much as someone who's neurodivergent, it's a bit nerve-wracking though, thinking, should I actually state that I am? Because what if, it's just there just to say, yeah, okay, cool. But what are the chances that they would want to go for someone who's neurodivergent over someone who's not neurodivergent or so on. But at least it's still nice to know that they are willing to make reasonable adjustments to make you feel as comfortable as you can be. And it also shows that they understand why these adjustments ought to be made. Because, when you now see the options of adjustments, you look at, oh, okay, they know why. It's not just general, they expect you to, they've been really specific about things like that and so on. So, yeah, I would say inclusivity is, going off the roof, and I hope it continues that way, especially with neurodivergence, because it's something that isn't constantly looked into in the corporate sphere. And I would say I have come across a lot of people. When you're neurodivergent, you would know who's neurodivergent. you,
Yeah,
you would know. You would
100%.
absolutely know. And I've come across a couple people in the city who I could just tell that, okay, yeah, it, there's a likelihood that this person is neurodivergent. So I just feel like, more light needs to be shed on it, really, you know?
Yeah. you touched on so many beautiful things. Okay, I just speak of the latter because that really sort of struck a chord with me when you said you walk around the square mile, you start speaking with people. You do, and for those of us who probably don't know enough about that square mile, that infamous square mile, it does happen. That people start chatting, and there's always a good sort of reason to connect and bump into each other, and you talk about things. And as you said so correctly, Bola, we can identify each other. Sometimes even you
Mhm.
identify a person who's not self-diagnosed or indeed, formally diagnosed, and something in you says to you, get well, I know. And there's something beautiful about that happening, is that so long as we embrace these unique characteristics characteristic rather of insurance, we can allow ourselves to grow, to develop as
Mhm.
people within this industry. Because the fact that it gives you the stepping stone to really identify yourself and reflect on who you are is already a merit, is already a benefit. Because knowing who you are as a person can only be a beneficial characteristic for you as a professional.
Absolutely.
And then something that will connect you even deeper with your teammates, with your peers in the industry, and ultimately with the
Mhm.
customers. Often enough about industries nowadays, we're speaking of the lack of trust. People are wondering, so are you going to
Yeah.
sort of pay that claim? Are you going to do what that policy is promising to deliver? And things do change radically once you get to know the person, once you get to speak to the
Mhm.
underwriter, once you speak to a claims team that really cares about you and the issue in question.
Yeah.
And that can only happen once we get to speak as people rather than be covered from a facade of X, Y, and Z professional accolade, which is great to have. But that's not
Yeah. I
exactly.
absolutely agree. And I feel like, with where neurodiversity is involved or having workers or professional colleagues who are neurodiverse people, it's one thing, like I said, to be inclusive, and another to be willing to be inclusive. And then even when you're willing to be inclusive, for everything to work smoothly, like you said, you need to know the person. Now, there's no amount of research that a company can do on autism, ADHD, anything. You know, you can do thousands. You can employ PhD people to do the research, fine, but it's not going to compare with knowing someone that has that,
Mm,
mm, certain neurodiversity, because when you know the person, okay, let me use this analogy. I may have done, say, a student or a graduate has done tons of research on broking, underwriting, read different papers and everything. But that student or graduate will not learn more until they are like involved in an internship program, you know, until they're involved in an internship program, that's when they're going to learn, or a grad scheme. That's when, because when they are in it, when they, are around people who are in it or who are those kind of things they want to be, that's when they will be able to learn, which is why, like you said, knowing people is so essential, getting to know them. A lot of colleagues need to know each other. Like, people need to get to know, okay, if I tap my keyboard a certain way, my colleague who's autistic might get a bit ticked off or overwhelmed, and that's going to slow down work or anything. You can't really expect a certain type of result without knowing the person you're working with. It's all about people knowing each other. I'm not saying get too personal, but just knowing how that person functions.
beautiful. Reminds me also of another guest I had on the podcast series, Jeff, who was speaking about the practical ways we can connect through and we can help each other to deliver on this getting to know oneself. And because we have been enabled to get to know oneself better, then we can work practically and sustainably on how we can enable our industry as a result to grow. Again, And you said it's amazing how much you feel insurance has grown over the last few months, and through the platform of inclusivity and the platform of appreciating all the variety of differences. And I loved how you basically navigated through giving us visible sort of differentiation examples, but also the invisible ones, the things that people need to delve a little bit deeper to be able to understand. And that's so incredibly valuable. And the practicality of it, the comparative advantage it can give as a team and as a company is really so valuable. And I think employers are basically just about getting to realize that.
Yeah, it's all about having those people being seen as well. Because, once they know that they are seen, you're going to see a huge spike in how they do their work because now they know they're being seen. That's going to motivate their creativity levels. Because, for example, if I was in an organization and I know I was being seen, it's not just about, oh, I want to impress my boss or I don't want to get in trouble because of mediocre piece of work or anything. But no, it's because that's like I'm experiencing the beauty of being seen. I'm saying, okay, people can see how my brain works. So I need to show them how my brain works. So that way, we can understand each other. We can add different, it's like doing a collaborative painting. I'm just gonna use a painting because I'm an arts enthusiast. So, everyone's just throwing in their own pieces to my work and they're like, okay, we see Bola and this is how Bola works. And because we can see her, she's showing us how far she can take this painting, how far she can make this whole thing work. And it's honestly, people underrate um the extent to which a business can grow or a work family can grow when certain colleagues are seen, when everyone feels seen. It's something that is very, very underrated without them even realizing that it's underrated because everyone says, yeah, we're a team, we're a family. But if we're family, we have to see each other for who we truly are and not just, yeah, she's good at Excels and, pivot tables or VLOOKUPs or whatnot. Yeah, no, you have to see the person for who they are, you know? Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I love how you actually took the work family as a synonym for business under the condition that people therein get to be seen for who they truly are, rather than read out as a very much rigid, stagnant piece of
Yeah.
CV, right? We're not just
Mm-hmm.
our CV, we're so much more than that. And I
Yeah.
hail, I don't know whether you've actually used, I'd like your opinion because I haven't. And a friend of mine the other day actually said to me, Vina, with this amount of enthusiasm, you definitely have to make your CV a video. Oh my God. Now, that sounds like a big, big sort of deal for me, and actually quite onerous because I have no idea how I could sort of take my CV as it stands, as it stands rather, on a written form into a video. How long do I have? How do I present myself? But essentially, that person was saying that somehow you have to show your true life, which cannot be shown through whether you've done a PhD or not, or whether you studied law or economics, right? You hit the nail on the head. I just absolutely adore that. And your allegory, almost, through the painting, it's very much sort of
Mm-hmm.
reminding me of the amount of money we spend annually on training employees. Serious amount of money, having some externals, and no disrespect to externals, third parties, absolutely incredible. But sometimes you don't need to look any further than within your own organization to identify the people who can already provide the training organically through some co-production, putting different people together and allow the magic to happen. And it's so beautiful and so, so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I picked up on the point of you saying it's beyond, PhD and so on, because that's another thing that actually struck out to me about this industry, the insurance industry. You'd see some of the requirements, and you see that most of it sometimes for entry-level role jobs, it says it stops at A levels. And it's like, oh, or you don't even see A levels. You see just as long as you're good with Microsoft or so somebody who didn't go to school. And it's like, oh, they actually are about the people, what the people bring to the table. It's different when there's a difference between what you bring and what your degree brings. You know, there are two different things, because there's some um what is it called? There's some career occupations where it's mainly about what your degree has. Your degree is what is the job, and then there are some jobs where it's about you as a person. Like, can you work under pressure? Can you do this? Can you do that? Blah, blah, blah. But with insurance, it's about both. Okay, you have a law degree and you're this person. Put two of them together, what can you bring? It's spectacular, but at the same time, I feel like when neurodiversity is included, it's like, what can you bring and what can you take off a table and replace with what you have? Think of it of like, we're trading different things. And I wish that I could literally say in an interview, I have a very creative mind. You know what you said about the CV becoming a video? I really wish, it's something that we could do rather than just typing commercial acumen, uh, critical thinking, collaborative, financial, blah, 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 analysis, this, that. No. But, I wish we could, somehow show that, look, if you have me on your team, because of the way I think, you think a car moves from point A to B, but I can think of different alternatives than a car to move from point A to B, and I can help you reform a new strategy or new formulas and all of that. And this is where being seen comes to play, because in every team there would always be that one person who is not, they acknowledgement is different from being seen. Yeah, thank you for the email, we got that. Yeah, that's acknowledgement. But being seen is knowing that, oh, she's good at this and that. There's one person who needs to be seen, and when that person is seen, I tell you, that team is going to take off, because they're going to notice that it's no longer the same old thing every day. It's today we found a new strategy, tomorrow we're doing this, and the work is going faster and smoother, and maybe everyone is leaving the office by 6 instead of 9 and 10. So, it's just about that intimacy of being seen. I feel like, you know, nobody really sees each other in the office. Apart from neurodiversity, even culture comes into play. Even um economic background, socioeconomic backgrounds come into play. Different things come into play, because everybody from each background has something from that background that would add value into, the team and growing the team and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. How rich is your input and your insight. I am so absolutely grateful for having this recording. Because we probably, knowing us, now that we've had, a couple of sort of chances to discuss, we can easily sort of, talk about those things. Very undiluted, very raw, very
Yeah.
authentic. But you have the recording that you can actually share, and people get the opportunity to listen to it. It's really so valuable. And what essentially this discussion sort of, strikes me as doing is basically creating a little bit of a radical analogy to remember that time. And I mean, of course you would remember, because you've been just really thrown at the deep end as a recent graduate of
Mm-hmm.
the times when we said, if you want to create say diversity, and of course the infamous diversity and inclusion, we should sort of cover up names on CVs and cover up any personal data so that everything is deemed to be quite meritocratic and you are judged and evaluated and potentially selected or deselected on the premise of whether you hold X, Y, and Z academic/professional qualification. Essentially, the discussion, and that's you, Bola, that has done that single-handedly today. You say, actually, no. How about us considering the reverse, the complete opposite, which is allow people to be seen, allow people to be the true selves, with anything that might entail. Pick any of the social graces, throw it at people, and essentially allow that being seen, not acknowledged, being seen to inform the need of a company to employ somebody who's a holistic offering, who's an offering not just from their attainments, but also from the attitudes and behaviors they can add to the role, and allow this role to grow as much as the company wants to grow or the workplace wants to grow, and indeed as the individual themselves want to grow. Because you don't want to just claim an underwriting position and be called forever an underwriter. You want to grow through this underwriting role, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about, apart from being seen, growth is another thing. But for one to grow, there needs to be space to grow, space to, actually grow and so on. And it all ties down to, when people might listen to this particular episode now and think space to grow. Okay, yeah, let's find courses for these people to do so that they can read and yeah, no, it's the courses are well appreciated, sure, because I'm sure and I understand that companies spend a whole lot of money, having these trainings and all of that. But sometimes space to grow could just be having your team come together and give them a puzzle to do and let everybody's skill come to play, give them riddles or I don't know, whatever you feel would work. Maybe in actuary, you might want to have them play with new numbers of solve a Rubik's Cube, maybe, or something, I don't know, or underwriting, you can do something, you can find different risks and like have them identify it. So it's just something fun because you would think it's a time waster, but sometimes when people are having fun doing something that's still related to their work, there's a new way of thinking and there's a new way, there are different skills that would come out to play without knowing that, these skills that will come out to play are skills that people didn't even know they had. It's like, okay. And then it's just about making people, apart from team building and the fun work stuff, it's about having them being comfortable. Because if you're not comfortable, you're not going to grow. You really need to be comfortable. You need to let them know that it's fine to be how you are. I'm not saying, okay, yeah, obviously there are work ethics, there are some things that there's a fine line between being yourself and being overly yourself. Like, say, not me, I don't really like wearing sweatpants and all of that, but like there might be someone out there who's, oh, I'm so comfortable wearing sweatpants, so I'm going to be myself and come into work with sweatpants and a tie because I want to be comfortable. No, that's a fine line between that, but it's about being comfortable with how they think. There's some people who aren't dumb, but they might take 2 minutes to process sentences slower than other people and so on. But I promise you, when they process it and give you an answer, it's going to be seamless. It's going to be, excellent and brilliant. So there needs to be space to grow. And that space to grow is being comfortable, giving them room to find new skills and just letting them, know that they are being seen, just conscious effort to being seen and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, wow, having fun, the ultimate icebreaker. as far as I'm concerned. Brings people together. The other day, I took part in a educational setting. It was at the UCL. We were part of it. That's me. I thought, oh my God, how daunting the idea of putting some code together. Um, but it was basically gamification of the educational system. How do you provide curricula that are actually based on the gamification side of was very rigid, strict educational system, as sometimes we observe it have become, sadly. It's having fun as an icebreaker. That having fun, like you said, the Rubik's Cube or any other scenario as a way to educate on deeper issues. We don't always have to call say, cybersecurity for what it is, or let's have the body, pretend to be the hacker, hacks into the system. Oh God, what do we do? Creating these the good cup, bad cup kind of scenarios forever. Let's create some different ways in which, from a scenario,
Yeah.
from what younger people nowadays get to do, which is playing video games, they tend to associate much more easily. Um, the space where you spoke about being comfortable in their own skin. And I acknowledge people sort of saying, oh, it's Friday, we have a dress down day. I'm gonna be coming into the office wearing my trainers. It's great. I applaud it. You don't have any client facing, where you have to put on obviously the more professional stance and look and etiquette. Fine. But let's not mock ourselves. Being able to wear trainers is only scratching the surface of inclusivity and of acceptance of authentic sort of presence of being ourselves. What you said very correctly goes much deeper. It is appreciating the way we think, it's appreciating what we have in there, and obviously what we have also in our hearts about stuff, our values. Now, the only thing that we're missing in this, because I think it's all very viable, we can always put aside some time for some riddle or some quiz. It's all great, it's all fun, and I'm sure there will be many companies, well, more than less, who would be happy to allocate some budget. Good. My question, and probably the urge that we perhaps both would like to give as a message to our audience of today's episode would be who's going to sit back and identify those skill sets and what are they going to do with them. So it's good that I am comfortable and I give you my true sense, the way that I think, the way that we connect to co-produce. But what does the company do with that? And who's going to take these notes? And are they going to allow it to sort of, become part of some paperwork? Or are they going to
Yeah.
really utilize it and put it into the workplace?
Yeah, that is, yeah, very spot on actually, because I feel like if a lot of businesses, that's also kind of, it's all interlinked actually, what I'm about to say. They just kind of throw things into the air of it's up for grabs, whoever wants to do it should do it. So obviously, first of all, no one's really going to be seen because it's just, us doing duty or what we're obligated to do. But, it's also a thing where there's a cycle of, you know, the same thing being done every time, notes and so on and so forth and everything, even with the way the notes are being taken. For me, like for example, when it comes to me and note taking, today you might see a very conventional, straight note with subheadings, so on and so forth. It depends on where my mind is, but sometimes when I'm really hyper focused, I might, have series of it's gonna be a straight normal note, but you might flip to the next page and it's mind maps and broken down into pieces because I've dissected or somehow managed to form some sort of mind map key to the note that I made. Because I remember in January, this is actually quite recent, about 2, 3 weeks ago, I had a work experience at Chubb, and each day, I had to make sure that I had notes from the different people I shadowed and so on. So as I made those notes, I also had like like a formula thing where I was breaking down those notes because the way I think is sometimes it can be reverse method. Rather, so if I want to solve a problem, it might be backwards rather than forwards, the way people think. So it might be me breaking everything down and then it's like taking apart a microwave for no reason and then putting it all back together just so I know how it works. So I feel like companies really need to give the room to do that because not everybody is happy to solve or to take even little things as notes the same way. Everybody needs that whole room. Even CEOs need the room. I feel like the pressure on CEOs are so much. Shout out to every vice president, COO, CRO, all the heads, directors, and managers listening to this because I cannot imagine the pressure there is because there's a certain expectation from them. It's a whole lot of expectation that okay, yeah, this is how it's meant to be done. However, I feel like it also goes down to them and how they do things. If they give themselves that room to let their true skills reflect in what they do and everything. For example, if I see a CEO's notes and I see a bunch of mind maps and so on, I'm going to think, oh, I use mind maps too, so that means it's fine. I guess it's okay for me to do that. And then that's going to give me more room to implement my own way of thinking, or, it's all about everybody having that room to grow, having that room to be expressive. I'm not saying expressive in the sense of having coloring pens. No, but like just the room to have that leeway to express how you think and show that this is how I think, this is why it's effective, this is how I'm going to make it effective, and so on.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. You closed it in such a beautiful sort of, stage where you're calling out for leaders to allow themselves to be the role models
Yeah.
of difference and differentiation, and allow some of us to really use this rail track as a way of a very ordinal, a very nicely structured way of working, but likewise allow others to use the sandbags, things
Yeah.
scattered, the mind map, things that allow, the true liberation of the mind. And I'm not taking sides. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
people who know me can tell which one I tend to dispute. Although, as you said earlier, behaviorally, we do have our moments. There will be times when I work on a very neat rail track, and there will be possibly more of these days when I have sandbag sort of style of working.
Mm-hmm.
And on first
Yeah.
take, you see a pattern that doesn't sort of bear any particular sort of, pattern therein. However, in the large scheme of things, it does take you to certain places, and ultimately it identifies the various different hows through which we can all achieve the same outcome and better ourselves on the way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Bola, so much for this amazing discussion today. I wish you really, from the bottom of my heart, the very, very best to you personally, but also, and most importantly, speaking as a representative of the industry of insurance, really the best of careers, and one that really acknowledges and sees you for being you. A great lawyer, but also an even better person. So, all the very best, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Vina. Honestly, I really enjoyed this conversation and I hope we can have more in the nearest future because it's very widespread, and there's just so many different angles to it. But yeah, thank you so much for having me, honestly. And I wish you the best as well. And I am looking forward to seeing more episodes as well.